Hello, welcome to the very first episode of Trash Talkin.
I'm Reg.
I'm E, and you come to us straight off of the most important weekend in football, the second most important weekend in football, conference championship weekend, right in the midst of the NBA season, coming up to the All-Star break and the NHL. There's a lot of stuff going around in the sports world, and what we're going to be doing each week is we're going to be talking about topics that's coming out of the sports world. There's going to be lots of news, and if you follow football, especially in the off-season, there's a lot of stuff coming out, so there'll always be action-packed. And the first thing we're going to talk about coming off of conference championship weekend is the Lions versus the Niners. So I ask you, did the Niners win or did the Lions lose?
I think it's a combination of both. I think the Niners showed a heart of champion coming back. I think the talent they have pulled through. But in my eyes, the Detroit coach lost the game, Dan Campbell. There's a way of being aggressive and a way of being stupid. And you can get away with a lot of that stuff in the regular season. When you're playing bad teams, you can go for two when you don't need to. You can do fake punts. You can do all those things and it looks pretty. But when it backfires, then you have to prove why you did it. And he twice had chances to kick field goals in the second half. The first time they were up 14, about 9 minutes left in the third quarter. If he tries a long field goal and they go back up 3 scores, to me, that deflates the Niners. Yeah. I think the game's over there. And when you're down 3 points and you have a chance to kick a field goal to tie the game, you have to do it.
Yeah.
Because in my eyes, if you don't trust your kicker, why have it? Because he thinks that field goals aren't automatic. He was going for 4th and 5 the majority of the time. It wasn't 4th and 1, 4th and 2. He was going 4th and long, and he had no business. And they stop running the ball in the second half. When you have a lead in the second half, you run the ball. The worst you can do is melt the clock.
Especially with their run game.
Exactly. They got a great running game. They were pounding the ball the whole game. They seemed to switch, and they played right into San Francisco's wheelhouse. And it was a lucky play that Ayuk got, but that's all the momentum. Football's all about momentum. When they stopped them on that 4th down, you could just feel the momentum switch, and it was hard for Detroit to get it back. And if it wasn't for that cheesy touchdown at the end of the game to make it close.
Yeah.
But they lost by 3 points, and he turned down a possible 6 points. In my eyes, it was crazy, and I think he lost the game. What do you think?
On the road especially, it kind of feels dumb to me. So I do have a problem with him going for it twice, but I was listening to Nick Wright today, and he said something really smart. Those two, it's just controversial. The biggest mistake he made, which I think Campbell ruined the game. I've been telling people that. Some people have argued with me about it, said it was more the drops. But I think Campbell blew the game. But I think the biggest gaffe he had in his game was running the ball with 3 timeouts in 1 minute and 5 seconds left. They're up 34 and 24. They're up 34 to 24. It was 3rd and goal, and he ran the ball.
He cost them the
timeout.
So cost them to get the ball back.
So now you have to rely on the onside kick. But realistically, with 1 minute and 5 seconds left, you get that touchdown, you kick off, 3 timeouts, you're probably going to get the ball back, if you get the ball back, with like 50 seconds, 55 seconds.
I agree, yeah.
So you get the ball back. And the way that offense was moving throughout the game, I know it had moments. It mostly stalled because of the 4th downs. But the offense was moving. You actually do have a chance. But the 2 4th downs, you went for it, especially the second one. The first one, I don't get it because you're in the playoffs and you're an underdog. But 24-10, I understand wanting to stretch it, even though going up 17 is probably a backbreaker to the Niners. Going for it down 3 kind of made no sense to me, especially when you are the underdog. You're the Lions too. It's been like 50 years.
And the part that bothers me the most is he comes out the next day and says it's hard to get here. Well, if it's hard to get to championship games, it's hard to get to Super Bowls. Lose it the proper way. Don't be so aggressive that you cost your players a chance to get there, because that's what it did. It cost his team a chance to get there. And I know the players love him, but sometimes you have to take points. He doesn't like kicking field goals, and he doesn't like punting. It's a part of the game, and points matter, field goals or touchdowns.
And when you said like the difference between regular season and postseason, is regular season, like week 14, you're playing next week. Like you can go for it, you can risk things, you're going to play. Conference championship, the down 3 really like gets to me, because you were down 3 and there was like 7.5 minutes left. You're going for it down 3. You're not even supposed to be there. You got very lucky with Eagles, Cowboys collapsing. You got to the conference championship game. You were right there. It looked like I even started falling asleep on the couch at one point. So I'm like, I think the Lions are just going to pull away. And that really made no sense to me. I have an interesting stat. I want to see if this changes your mind. It's been going around Instagram from Nate Atkins. He said the Lions were 15 of 20, which is 75%, at converting with 4th and 3 or fewer in the regular season, plus 2 for 2 in the postseason. Michael Badgley, their kicker, was 9 of 20, 45% in his career from 48 plus yards, which is the worst among high volume kickers in NFL history. Does that change your mind?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't change my mind. It doesn't change my mind. This guy wants you to feel sorry for him, but when it works, he was a hero, and he,
yeah, I agree.
He likes the limelight when it works. He cost them the number 2 seed against Dallas.
Yes,
being stupid and keep going for 2-point conversions, even after you got a penalty when he could have kicked the extra point, tied the game.
Yeah,
and played for overtime. He could have cost themselves a home game against Dallas, which could have cost them from getting there. So I don't feel sorry for him because he's done it all year, and it looks pretty when it works. But if you don't like your kicker, and you have a championship team, go find yourself a kicker.
Get it. You have to get a kicker. That was the biggest difference that I thought, at least with why this Cowboy team was different. That we had Brandon Aubrey. If it came down to needing a kick, we would kick it. They didn't have one.
I don't trust the San Francisco kicker. He missed one. He's not the best kicker, but they have a great team. But he went for the field goal.
Because Shanahan's just a little, I think, just smarter than Campbell. Yeah. I think Campbell's a great motivator. I don't think he's a great coach.
No, I think sometimes they overthink, and that ends up costing him more.
Yeah.
And I do believe that they lost the game. It's hard to blow a 17-point lead. And he was thinking about 4th and 5 just before half. He was almost going to go.
And then they ended up taking the points.
But he took the field goal, which was the right idea, to go up 17 points. 17 points is 3 scores. If he would have did that in the third quarter with 90 minutes left,
it's huge.
The odds on San Francisco were only going to get the ball back 4 times at the most.
Absolutely.
So they got to score 3 to 4 times. So now you're scared of your defense not stopping them. So to me, it's a combination.
And then right after the momentum changed, like with going 4th down, the Lions dropped the pick. They ended up Ayuk 50-yard, and then they got the touchdown. And then right after that, very next drive, Gibbs fumbles right away. So like momentum completely shifted.
That's how football is, and that's how sports is. If you give a team a chance, especially a team like San Francisco, and I've always thought since the beginning of the year, they're an all-star team. Absolutely. If they didn't have injuries, they should be in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And they're proving it now. And if you have a team down like that, you
have to kill them down. To give the Niners a little more credit than I was giving them, just looking at Brock Purdy, because I think Purdy's in this weird little world where he's a little overrated, but also very underrated. People like me and a lot of people, like analysts, have wanted to see Purdy in the 4th quarter when he's down. And I thought these stats were interesting. So Brock Purdy's stats and wins: pass yards per game, 233. Touchdown per game, 2.5. Interception per game is 0.16. His percentage is 72 and his rating is 130. But in losses, like this is why a lot of people kind of go against him. Yards per game's up because they want him to throw more. It's at 254. His touchdowns per game is not even at 1. His interceptions per game is 2.25. Percentage is 60 and rating is 65. So seeing him go down the field 2 games in a row where he didn't play good, and being down, he was down 17 at one point in this game, seeing him go down the field and kind of lead the team was big.
What makes me more mad about people that are on Brock Purdy is they'll stick up for Lamar Jackson, who just signed a $50 million contract, who chokes in the playoffs every year.
I agree.
And never wins a big game. All Purdy has done is win. If he didn't get hurt last year in the championship game against Philadelphia, they're probably in the Super Bowl 2 years in a row. So
it's pretty impressive.
What are they complaining about? I don't understand how people can mock this guy just because he was the last pick in the draft. That means there's a lot of teams that were stupid. That doesn't mean this guy can't play. I seen him play in college at Iowa State, and he was good. There was nothing wrong with him. I was surprised he dropped that long, but that's what happens in the draft. Sometimes people don't get drafted high. And
I don't really care about the all-star team around him, because to knock my guy, Dak has had an all-star team around him his whole career and never made it this far. I love Dak, but that really doesn't play into it for me. I have another question, because Dan Campbell, these were his comments after the game, which was kind of weird, but made sense to me. He said, once we get to the season, we got no shot of getting back here. I don't care how much better we get or what we add or what we draft. It's irrelevant. It's going to be tough. Everybody in our division is going to be loaded back up, and you're not hiding from anybody anymore. Everybody's going to want a piece of you. So do you think this was the Lions' best chance?
Yeah, definitely. Because you know what? They were horrible for so many years. They were the dream pick this year when it started. And it started off on a Thursday night. They beat Kansas City in Kansas City. And everybody had them going to the playoffs and the Super Bowl. They were in a bad division.
Yeah.
And in football, you know as well as I do, injuries play a big part of it. You're never going to go 2 and 3 years without having major injuries.
Yeah.
They have a young team. The odds are they're going to get injured. The Bears, the Packers, and the Vikings are all going to be better.
Yeah.
You have Dallas and Philadelphia that are good. The NFC is pretty
getting better
heavy,
too.
and you're not going to sneak up on anybody because guess what? When you go play them now, they're going to say, hey,
now
we want to beat you. And if for some reason maybe you ran up the score against them or you did something against the team, they're going to remember.
They're
going to go back at their bulletin board material. And I do believe this was their best chance. And that's why I hate for them to lose that way. You know what? If you would have missed the field goal, it happens all the time. We saw it last week with the Bills. I would rather lose by a missed field goal than keep going for 4th down and not giving yourself a chance at points.
Absolutely. And it is getting a lot better than NFC next year. Even the mediocre teams have chances in the draft to get better. And every team in their division, the Packers proved it this year, the Vikings with Cousins healthy, and the Bears have opportunities with the first pick. So I think this was the best chance. And I think the whole NFC, besides maybe the Saints, the Cardinals,
and
the
Rams
Panthers
are only getting better.
Absolutely.
Seattle's going to be good. They got a new coach. So
I agree.
It is hard to get back there. Other than Kansas City and New England, which never happened.
You have to have the best quarterback in the league.
I mean, those teams are
few
and far between.
And the Lions are not.
It's hard to get that,
And Goff is
they
not
have a good young team, and guess what? In 3 years, they're going to have to start paying everybody.
People.
So what happens?
Goff's going to get an extension too.
To me, this was their shot to sneak up on everybody and get there. And yes, they blew.
I think so too. All right, let's segue to Chiefs-Ravens. This is the one I've been kind of looking forward to because it's a little controversial. So obviously we watched the Chiefs-Ravens game. It wasn't like fireworks like we thought it was going to be, but there's a lot of talk about Mahomes after this game getting back to a Super Bowl. I want to know, what does Mahomes' GOAT case look like with another Super Bowl win?
Well, if he wins the Super Bowl with this team
especially,
and those receivers, I would put him up there right behind Brady already.
Me too.
Because he willed this team to win. But in the case of Baltimore, that was the worst coached offensive game I've seen. And everybody praised Todd Monken for Baltimore about what a great offensive mind and Lamar Jackson this, Lamar Jackson that. Kansas City's weakness on defense was rush defense. Buffalo ran right through him the week before.
Yeah.
He only gave his running backs 11 carries that game. And they weren't behind by that much where they had to stop running.
They were in the whole game.
And Lamar looked scared.
Very scared.
And he was throwing the ball like it was a dart. And they really gave Kansas City that game. They gave him 3 points. Totally. They were very undisciplined.
Fumbled in the end zone.
Again, some of their players cost them.
Zay Flowers cost them.
This is the first time I could say I watched the Kansas City playoff game, and the calls that they got were legit.
Yeah.
Because the penalties that Baltimore took were their own fault. They have nobody to blame but themselves. But when Kansas City doesn't score a point in the second half,
you have to win that game.
You can't win at home. And this is Lamar's second time as the number 1 seed. And both times they choked. So
wasn't the last time he only scored like 6 points against Titans?
Tennessee.
Like that was a big upset too. At least
he couldn't score either. It wasn't like they were high flying team.
So he's not like, it's not like Allen running into Mahomes every year and like it's high scoring game. It's like Lamar doesn't even show up for the Mahomes game. That's what gets to me.
It honestly looked like he was scared running. He didn't want to get hurt at first. He had a few runs.
He could have blown that run, and he looked like he was
down there, and he stopped. I mean, he could have went by the defensive back, but it was a poorly offensive coach game. The defense for Baltimore played well, but the penalties and everything else, and Kansas City just knows how to win.
Yeah, it's them.
It's scary for the AFC that nobody this year could beat them. But I think if Joe Burrow was healthy, I think Cincinnati would be in the Super Bowl as we speak.
I think so too. But I think with the Chiefs, it's just a Mahomes thing. Like with Brady, you could say Belichick, you could say the defense, you could say Gronk, but it was like they had the best quarterback in football, and they're going to keep going. And Mahomes, like I know he didn't like go crazy at 17 points, but that last throw to MVS, like perfect throw. He does it when it matters. I think Mahomes is going to be the greatest of all time. I don't think it's going to be that close at the end of the day. And I just picked out some like crazy Mahomes stats. And one of these, I'll tell you when I get to it, is actually blows my mind. So the first one I have is Patrick Mahomes is now tied for 7th all time with 13th playoff wins. He has as many as Brett Favre, Ben Roethlisberger, Staubach, and Rodgers. And if he wins a Super Bowl, he'll be alone in 3rd all time, only behind Brady and Montana. That's from Albert Breer on Twitter. This one is crazy to me. Through his first 7 seasons, Mahomes has more passing yards with 28,424, more passing touchdowns, 219, and a better passer rating, 103.5 than Brady. So we're comparing, and I know Brady won all the time. I know Brady's the GOAT, and he has 7, and he did it at 2 different points in his career. But when Brady came into the league, he was like kind of good. He had his dynasty. Mahomes came in straight to the league, was the MVP his first year as a starter, then went to a Super Bowl. Mahomes' stats in the postseason this is an MVP. Like altogether, this would be probably one of the greatest seasons we've seen in a long time. 14-3 record, 67% completion percentage, 4,800 yards, 39 touchdowns, 5 rushing touchdowns, and 7 picks. That's his whole postseason. So when I talk about Brady and Mahomes, I know it's close right now, and it's kind of crazy that it's about to be close in a week. I think it'll be close to who's better. But through 96 games for both, Mahomes has more yards, more passing touchdowns, less picks, better completion percentage, more wins, and a better passer rating. I think because people are so stuck up on the rings that he'll have to get to 4, maybe 5. For me, it's 4 to kind of be considered in a GOAT conversation. But one more MVP to tie Brady all time. That's kind of like all time. 3. He would already be there.
He showed me a lot this year because, like I say, this was the year the AFC West could have took him. Kansas City wasn't that good.
The Chargers should have.
When they lost Tyreek Hill, I thought they were on the downside. They were done. I thought, you know what? Their best receiver's gone. He's shown me a lot that, hey, he can do it with whatever. But the Baltimore coaching staff, again, the defensive coach just signed today with Seattle. He's supposed to be a defensive genius. When they have no receivers that scare you, and the one guy that catches the ball is Kelsey, and he's wide open for 11 catches, and you don't have to double team receivers. How is Kelsey open that easy? And you're supposed to be a defensive coach. If I'm coaching in the NFL and I'm playing the Chiefs,
Kelsey's
there's 2 guys on Kelsey the whole time.
Yeah.
Let somebody else be you. You know, and that's why when Belichick coached, he always took their best player away. I don't understand why teams aren't doing that with the Chiefs. Just have somebody in front of Kelsey and have somebody follow Kelsey when he gets by him. I don't understand. If those receivers are going to beat you, let them beat you.
Yeah, you let the guy beat you.
You know, but Mahomes, I would say right now he's behind Brady. And there's never a game he's out of.
Yeah, and he's always in.
This is the difference between him. I like Josh Allen.
Yeah, me too.
He turns the ball over way too many times. He costs his team a few games a year where Mahomes won't do that.
No.
Mahomes is pretty straight up, and he'll eat the ball. He'll throw it out of bounds. He'll go down. He'll get a run, but he's not going to turn the ball over, and I think that's the difference.
I rarely see Mahomes have a bad game. I feel like I see Allen like 1 every 3 weeks have a pretty bad game. Like I think Mahomes is steady. He's consistent. I saw a stat. I think it's the last 6 games in the postseason he hasn't thrown a pick, and that's like a record. He doesn't turn the ball over. He's perfect. And so the next question I have for this is, can Lamar ever take his team to a Super Bowl?
No. This was their best chance. To me, they had everything given to them. They got to play Houston at home. They had to bye, which nobody else has. They played Houston at home, which pretty much it was a gift. Houston's a young team. Yeah. It's going to be good.
They stuck in for a little bit.
Baltimore has a very good defense, and they went and got them some receivers. I'm not saying they're great, but they went and got them receivers.
Zay Flowers is great.
They got a good running game and a good defense. If you couldn't win this year with a home game, they're never going to win. And I just think they've reached their peak. I think they're going to go back to just being a defensive team where they can't score. I mean, they scored a lot of points in the regular season, but when it comes to the playoffs, to me, I think this was his best shot, and I can see some regression. And you got to remember, Burrow in Cincinnati,
coming back.
Cleveland has a heck of a team, and Pittsburgh are always in the mix. And if they ever go get a quarterback, they're going to be good. So they're in a tough division. And again, they're going to have a first-place schedule next year.
Yeah,
which means you're playing all the top dogs in other conferences. So I would say it's going to be hard for them to get back.
being in the AFC with all the good quarterbacks, like being in that division too, it's gonna be even hard to get to the playoffs for me. Because I think the Bengals are better just because they have the quarterback. The Steelers for some reason always go like 9-8, 8-8. They're always above 500. So the thing with Lamar this year is I think he's getting a lot of unnecessary hate. I, by the way, do not think I think this was his best chance. I don't think he gets his team to a Super Bowl. I think the unnecessary hate is because we've overrated him a lot. And so this is Lamar Jackson's 2023 season stats. And I did the per game because I'm going against the Chiefs too. So per game, he had a touchdown and a half, which is not that good. He didn't throw many picks. He was 0.3 per game. Yards per pass, 8, and rush yards per game, 51. So that's the important one because everyone says he tried his best not to run that game, and he did look scared to run. Against the Chiefs, he had 272 passing yards, which were a little bit garbage.
Yeah.
But in the pass yards per game for the season, 230. So he was better in the Chiefs game than he was all season. Pass touchdowns, he had 1, only a half less than what he had all season. He had 1 pick, which was bad for him. Yards per pass, 7.5, and more rush yards, 54, than he averaged in a game this season. I think you got exactly what you got all season from Lamar. The only difference is the defense didn't have a pick 6. They didn't pick up a fumble at the 5-yard line. I think it was a very overrated season for him. His passer rating was great. I think it was 103, but everything else was 24.
They had big leads in a lot of games where they were scoring a lot against Miami, against San Francisco, against Detroit, against good teams.
Yeah.
And then they were running the ball. But my problem is a lot of guys, they felt sorry for him when he was under contract negotiation. And, you got to throw the guy $50 million,
Yeah.
But you're paying him, and he hasn't performed in the playoffs.
Not at all.
So to me, he's not worth the money that he received.
I never thought paying Lamar would do you all that much if you're the Ravens. If I was the Jets, I would have jumped all over Lamar when that whole thing was happening instead of Rodgers. But to me, 2019 in the MVP season for Lamar, just watching him, like every game was spectacular. I tried to watch a lot of Ravens game this year, and I wasn't impressed by him. I was impressed by the defense. He would do I think he's a great runner. I think we overrate him as a quarterback because when you look at top 4, top 5 quarterbacks, I don't know if I'm putting him in there as a pure quarterback.
He's not the best quarterback in his division.
I think Burrow's better.
Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, I would take over him in a minute. So the AFC have a lot of quarterbacks.
Would you take Rodgers?
What?
Would you take Aaron Rodgers over Lamar?
Not at his age now. No. Back in the day, yes. But no, not coming off an injury. And, he throws a better ball.
Yeah, I agree.
And he's been in a good situation, Lamar, where he didn't have to throw the ball 40 times a game. So to me, he's overrated, and I think from now on it's going to be harder for them.
Absolutely. And
when you blow 2 number 1 seeds and don't get to the Super Bowl,
that looks bad.
It does look bad. So
to wrap up this, I just want to give a stat that I thought I'm a little biased, but I thought was very, very important. Lamar Jackson's playoff career, 6 games, is a 75 passer rating, 1,300 yards, 6 touchdowns, 6 picks. Dak Prescott, who is a playoff choker, a known playoff choker, 91 rating in 7 games. 1,900 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 7 picks. One is substantially better.
That's the problem when you play in Dallas compared to playing in Baltimore. You're not going to get scrutinized as much. So,
I agree.
To me, that's the only difference.
I agree. I think Dak's better, but that's just me. All right, third topic. This one is one I've been thinking about the last week. Just looking at stats, I think it's unbelievable. Is Luka becoming the best player in the NBA?
I would say by far, yes.
Yeah? Okay.
The only problem with me is not that anybody plays defense in the NBA,
he doesn't,
but he's got to play a little more defense. But he averages 35 points almost, 9 assists, and almost 9 rebounds.
He does everything.
If you can average a triple-double for the season, I don't know how you stop the guy scoring. He can shoot from wherever. He can do whatever, go to the hoop. I just think shame on Mark Cuban for not giving him the team around him to go with his talents, because Kyrie Irving wasn't the answer. And if you look at their lineup, there's nobody. They're in first place in the bad division, but they're in 7th in the West.
It should be a lot better than they are.
And with him, if you don't go get somebody, they're never going to compete with the big teams in the West.
I think so. When I was thinking about this, because you're right, they don't give him anybody. I think Mark Cuban has looked at Dončić because his play style is kind of similar as LeBron, but he doesn't see that Dončić isn't 6'9", 250 like LeBron was. So I was just looking at in 2014-15 when LeBron was the undisputed best player in basketball. The top 5, according to Bleacher Report, was LeBron, Durant, even though he was hurt, Chris Paul, Curry, and Melo. But there was LeBron and then Durant. There was a huge – I think Luka has a disadvantage because he's playing in a league right now that I think probably has the most talent it's ever had. If you look at the Ringer this season, it updates every week. It just updated January 18th. Their top 5 is Jokic, Embiid, Giannis, Luka, and Curry. So I don't think people like LeBron or even Jordan ever had to deal with a Jokic, Embiid, Giannis as ahead of them. Those are players that would be arguably the best player in any generation.
The offensive talent now is through the roof. I mean, these guys are shooting threes when they're 10 years old, and it doesn't matter what size you are. There is more scoring now than there ever was. Yeah. But on the flip side, nobody's playing defense like they did back in the day when the Heat and Knicks were playing and the scores were 85, 81.
Yeah, you're not going to get that at all today.
But you're not getting that anymore. But just the way these guys move around and shoot, it's just amazing how good that they are. Sometimes they're fully covered and they're draining threes.
It doesn't matter what you do.
So I would say hopefully Luka keeps himself in shape because you'd hate to see him get hurt.
That's been his problem.
He missed a lot of time, yes.
He's not in great shape, and he's not fast at all, which is what the fun part about watching him is how slow he is and how good he is.
He creates shots. I mean, he's not going to blow by you.
No.
He draws fouls.
He's unbelievable.
And he just can make shots from anywhere. And he reminds me a little bit of Nowitzki in Dallas.
Yeah,
Nowitzki
it was perfect
was a great thing. He could shoot from anywhere. He was a lot taller than Nowitzki.
Not athletic.
Yeah, this guy is good. He's great for the game.
I think so too.
And I just hope that if he stays in Dallas, they go and get him a piece of the puzzle that can take the pressure off him and also give him some scoring and give him some depth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because their team is thin. And
I think he needs to leave at some point. I don't think it's ever going to happen in Dallas.
I don't know how many years he's got left, but I don't think he's going to stay forever in Dallas.
No.
I don't think they can keep him.
I love Luka, and the reason I wanted to do this one is because even though I love Luka so much, Jokic is still number 1 to me. Just because I think he does everything well. And then I put Dončić at 2. But the reason this was such a fun question for me is because I have a comparison. I think I've said this for a little bit, that this era, especially in basketball, but in football too, you have the most you've ever had possible greatest of all times. Giannis, if he gets another ring, if he gets an MVP, you could put him in the conversation. Jokic, another ring, another MVP, but the team he has, like at least Milwaukee's kind of slowing down a little bit. The Nuggets seem like full steam ahead. They could be possible greatest of all times. I think Dončić, there's a very good possibility. I compared his stats this season, which is kind of misleading, to Jordan's 1996 stats. He leads everywhere but steals and blocks. Do you think that's ever going to be somewhat of a conversation?
I think he needs to
needs
at least one ring and get to some championship. That's why he needs the help.
Yeah.
I would never compare any of these guys to Michael Jordan because I was around for Michael Jordan, and that guy, he was it.
I know.
He won games on his own. He played with whoever was there. Yeah. And if he played now, he'd be at the foul line 20 times a game. When he got fouled, he got fouled.
Yeah, he actually got the real
These
fouls.
guys now, sometimes the wind goes by and
they fall.
And, they're rolling around. But athletes now are so better in every sport.
Everything.
They're so much better shape.
Yeah.
Statistic wise, and that is making the games higher scoring and more exciting. Yeah. And like you said before, they have all these different countries and great basketball players playing and coming over and playing that. And
they're playing higher basketball like competition in Europe. Like Dončić was playing in a league at 16 against grown men.
Exactly. Yes.
In like Wembanyama, like we're getting like top tier athletes from like Europe, and they're coming in and right away dominating. Like they don't need time.
And the problem with the NBA, and I hope this doesn't happen, but there's so many horrible teams that when these guys are getting drafted, they're going to go and rot on these teams that are terrible for years and get 10, finish 10 and 62 or 20 and 62. I wish the NBA would get rid of 4 or 5 teams. And it would make the league so much better. And you just put everybody into certain teams. And I think the competition, it would be unbelievable league.
Absolutely.
Because right now, like the Wembanyama playing San Antonio.
Yeah.
He's a great player.
On a bad team.
They're a terrible team.
Yeah.
They're not going to get better anytime
No.
soon. Is his skills going to get better playing on a bad team? A lot of times you don't get better playing on terrible teams when you're losing by 20, 30 points a game. So I hope that doesn't happen because the lottery, your number 1, 2, 3 picks, you're going to the worst teams.
Yeah.
And it's tough for you to get better, I find.
Yeah. I agree completely. And to that Michael Jordan point, at some point, we will have the LeBron and Jordan debate on here.
Oh, no, I didn't say about LeBron.
No, I
meant Michael and anybody else.
That's it. Yeah.
I don't want to hear it because Giannis gets fouled at the foul line and takes 8 steps. And he's at the free throw line 30 times. Embiid goes to the foul line 30 times. I would say the closest comparison would be LeBron to Jordan. But
I'll take that for now.
To me, when Jordan played, it was all defense, and now it's all offense. So it's hard to compare everybody because it's like two different games.
Yeah, I know.
It's two different games.
All right, we got one more topic. Thank you for listening, and we will be back next week. Our last topic is a fun one. I want to do our NFL honors picks. It's coming up. Obviously throughout the season, you have like debates, and every week it feels like we're talking about the MVP. Even though after week 6, it does not cement the MVP case. But every week we're talking about it. So I want to know who your picks are for the major awards in the NFL.
Well, I'll give you my MVP. And this wasn't because of last week. This was the regular season. And I want the MVP not just to be the most valuable quarterback. Yeah. So I give it to Christian McCaffrey.
That's good pick.
21 touchdowns, 1,500 yards rushing, over 700 yards receiving. He makes that offense go. And for a league that is running backs out of the league, what he does for that team,
massive.
And he stayed injury free most of the year. Yeah. I just don't think you have to give it to a quarterback every time. His hands are on the ball every play.
Yeah.
It's nice to see somebody else who's not in on every play. Yeah. That does what they have to do. And I think without McCaffrey, they wouldn't be that explosive offense that they are. Yeah. It makes everybody else open.
And it gives Purdy a lot. He's a lot of pressures off Purdy.
Exactly.
They're stacking boxes from McCaffrey. And even when they're not giving McCaffrey the ball, he's so good out of the backfield receiving the ball that so much attention is going to him. And Rusty also believes that McCaffrey should be the MVP, it looks like.
I just think MVP means most valuable player.
Yes.
Not position, not quarterback. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what it would take now for a defensive player to win it. But, there should come a day where these guys get it. And I hope it happens. But to me, McCaffrey, I don't know about yourself. So this is a weird one for me. Halfway through the season, I was on the defensive side. I thought it was Myles Garrett. Halfway through the season, I got off that pretty quick. I have 3 answers. I think it should be McCaffrey. I think it will be Lamar. And if it was a quarterback, if it has to be a quarterback word, it should have been Dak. But I think Lamar will get it because I think the storyline is behind first. They were the first seed. They had the best record. Lamar, I kind of crapped on him this whole time. He was good. He was the best quarterback for them. I think it was I'll ask you this. Out of the last 10 MVPs, who do you think had the worst season? Don't count Lamar if he's going to get it. Since 2014. 2014, who had the worst season?
Yeah.
Brady?
It could have been Brady. That was one of them. With touchdowns, it was Cam Newton in 2015. He had 35 passing touchdowns. That was the worst. Lamar has 24. They went to the Super Bowl. Yeah. Lamar has 24. He has 24 touchdowns. He didn't even break 25, which is just a pretty good season. I don't see how he gets it, but he will. Again, there's this thing where a lot of these analysts and TV people, they have a thing for Lamar. Yeah, and I agree. They almost feel sorry for him, but he's a great player. Yes. Yes. Is he the best player? No. I wouldn't take him in the top 10 quarterbacks in the league right now. Me neither. I would start my team with 10 other guys. Yeah. And your guy, he had a great year. Terrible playoffs, but but he had a great year. He turns the ball over, but he gives it his all, and he makes that offense go. And without him, you guys wouldn't have had 12 wins. So people really overrate the Cowboys team without Dak. It's actually very mediocre without Dak. You have CD. Yes. And then you go from there. All right. So who would be your offensive player of the year? Offensive player of the year? Yeah. You got to go with McCaffrey. Yeah, you can give him 2? That makes sense. I mean, to me, who else are you going to give it to?
I have rookies that I like.
Yeah.
But I would give it back to McCaffrey.
Yeah. That's
Again, probably over Dak.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Dak should get Offensive Player of the Year. I think Offensive Player of the Year is between McCaffrey and Hill.
I would have gave it to Tyreek Hill if he didn't get hurt in the last 4 or 5 games. I would give it to Josh Allen, but he turns the ball over way too many times. So I'm not going to give it to a guy that turns the ball over as much as he does.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there's so many good players
that
had good years, Goff.
Yeah, you can argue. I could argue CeeDee Lamb, but I won't. But I think CeeDee had a great year. I would give it Tyreek Hill. I'm going away from stats a little bit. I watched Tua with and without Tyreek Hill, and I watched him before Tyreek Hill arrived in Miami.
Yes.
And I just watched him against the Chiefs. I'm kind of off the defending Tua train because everything I've watched of him has been not good at all, unless it's against a terrible team. But I think Tyreek Hill is the most important part.
There's a lot of guys that are stat stuffers against bad teams, and Miami was one of them. And unfortunately, we gave up 70 to them. I can't really say anything.
That does go in with the stat stuffers against bad teams.
So I'm going to put Tyreek Hill was having a great. If he would have got 2,000 yards,
I thought he would.
That would have been amazing.
If he didn't get hurt, he would have gotten very close.
If he didn't get hurt, he would have. But yeah, he would have been a choice.
I would have. Yeah. So I would take Tyreek Hill for Defensive Player of the Year. Who would you take?
I got to go Myles Garrett.
Okay.
I don't think Cleveland would be the same without him. And he played hurt a lot, especially down the stretch.
Yeah.
For the sacks and pressures he put on to keep his team in games, who kept going through quarterback after quarterback, and the offense lost the running back. I got to give it to Myles Garrett. I mean, Micah Parsons would be a close second, but
mine is Myles Garrett completely because he was like, usually your quarterback is the driving force of your team. Myles Garrett was by far the driving force of the team. They lost their quarterback. They were the carousel, and then Joe Flacco somehow came in and looked good. Nick Chubb, who is the most important part of their offense to me, the run game is the most important part, then gets hurt. Myles Garrett, it felt like took the team on his back. I thought he was the MVP at one point, and I knew he wouldn't get it, but I thought he was the most valuable player in football. And my second is going to be kind of surprising. I would not have given it to Micah second. He would not have been. Max Crosby would have been. I watched Micah Parsons disappear all year, and I love Micah, and I think he's the best. I don't hate his podcast as much as everyone else does, but I see him disappear in the biggest game, and he gets held all the time. I'll give him that, but I've watched TJ Watt. He gets held all the time. They all get held all the time, and they should be getting the calls, but Micah is the only one who disappears. I see TJ Watt like 3 times a game. It pops off my screen.
That's a guy I would have high on my list as well. Because when he's out, the Steelers aren't the same, and he's always around the quarterback, and that defense always puts that bad offense in good positions to win. And when they win, it's usually the defense. And that guy, when you see him play, there's no stopping. He's just like his brother. He's
like Myles Garrett to me. Like, he is the driving force of the team. Like, it's not Kenny Pickett, and it's even more than Myles Garrett because I look at the Steelers' offense. I don't see much good about it. Like, the run game's all right. Passing game's not good at all. Their defense is what wins them games. When the Browns had a couple games where obviously Flacco got hot, but yeah, mine is Myles Garrett. Then it would be Max Crosby. Like, I wouldn't have Parsons. I would have TJ Watt after, even though he missed time, and then Parsons. I love Parsons. I hope he proves me wrong, but it was really.
I got to agree with him, Max Crosby. The guy's a beast.
Underrated too.
And he goes all out every play. And if he has the right coach, which the Raiders never had for the longest time, but I think they do now.
Me too.
I think that defense will get better. And if they put people around Crosby, he's just going to get better and better because he's tough to stop one-on-one. And if they put the pieces around him, I think they could be a very good defense next year.
And you draft a quarterback. You have Adams, Jacobs. If you get a decent quarterback there, that should be a playoff team. Okay, so for Offensive Rookie of the Year, I think we're going to have the same one, but I don't know. I haven't heard yours yet.
You know what? This was so hard. I love Puka.
Yeah, okay.
What he did, 105 receptions on a team that I thought was going to tank and play for a high draft pick, to play with Cooper Kupp, to do what he did with Stafford.
Yeah.
But how can you not give it to Stroud?
Yeah, okay.
I mean,
that's right.
He went on a team that had the number 1 pick.
Yeah.
He got him to the playoffs.
Yeah.
He throws a great ball. He can run. He can throw. And if they get more weapons around him, he's only going to be better. And when he came out of college, I knew he was good in college, but I thought he was going to be another Justin Fields because he went to Ohio State just like him.
Everyone thought that.
But man, he showed me a lot this year, and I think he should be happy and send the Carolina Panthers a Christmas card that they didn't draft him because he wouldn't have done what he did.
He would have been ruined
going to Carolina. But I got to go with CJ.
Mine is easily CJ Stroud, and I understand the Puka stats. Like, he was awesome. He was great all year. He came out of nowhere. But just without even looking at the stats, when you watch CJ Stroud, that was the best rookie quarterback I've seen in my time watching football. You've seen a lot more quarterbacks than I have, but that was different to me. He just came in and took over right away.
That's the most common quarterback I've seen in big situations, and he did not look out of place from game one.
Never.
And he was going on a bad team who started drafting better, got a better coach.
Yep.
He's got some good receivers. He throws a great ball.
Yeah.
And he's smart.
He's very smart with the ball.
And you know what, at Ohio State, he played in big games all the time.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, maybe, another Justin Fields, blah, blah, blah. But no, this guy's the real deal. And you're right. Coming out of college and playing like that in year one, I don't think I've seen anybody.
I've never seen it
get to that level in the first year.
All year he looked great. And I liked Stroud a lot in college. I liked him better than Young. I had my top three quarterbacks were Stroud, Richardson, because I thought how good he can be, and Young. And it really changed when I watched Stroud against Georgia, and it looked like he was going to pull off that upset if it wasn't for the missed field goal at the end, and he played unbelievable. But he showed, especially in his rookie year this year, that he can move around in the pocket. He's not just a standstill quarterback. And he really didn't have, great weapons. Nico Collins had a breakout year, probably because of Stroud. And I think Tank Dell's awesome, but he got hurt. Noah Brown, I watched him drop balls on my team for the last 3 years. I don't think Noah Brown's that good.
The guy, your tight end.
Dalton Schultz, he's good. But again, I think Stroud and Dak make Schultz look a lot better than he was. I think he's the guy, and I think D'Amico's the guy. I think they have really, really good culture.
They're going to be a scary team for the next coming years. And there's only one reason Bryce Young got drafted ahead of him, because he went to Alabama.
Yeah.
They had they always have great receivers, Alabama.
Yeah.
They beat up on bad teams, and they pad their stats against bad teams. And everyone says, you got to get the guy from Alabama. You got to get the guy from Alabama.
Yeah. I thought it was a mistake this year.
It was a horrible mistake. Carolina is going to pay for a while.
And they gave a first-round pick to do it.
And they
can't even build next year.
Pick. But I think Houston's in good hands for a long time.
Me too. Okay. We got two more. Who would be your defensive rookie of the year?
Defensive rookie of the year? Well, let's see here.
Yeah.
This one's a hard go. Jalen Carter.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's a beast.
Yeah.
6 sacks, touchdown, 2 forced fumbles.
Yeah.
When I seen that guy at Georgia, I thought this guy was the best player I've ever seen. I mean, the guy was bigger than the table. He just fills the middle up, and he just plays the run, and he can play the pass.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe in the NFL he wouldn't be as good, and maybe wouldn't be able to have the stamina. But what he showed me, I think you have to give it to him.
I thought if I would take Jalen Carter too. I thought if it wasn't for the off the field issues, I think that I liked Will Anderson more just because I think an edge rusher is more important.
Yeah.
But I thought he would be the first non-quarterback taken, and I still can't believe that the Lions passed on him and traded back instead, because that made no sense to me. But I think Jalen Carter, just watching him, his spread, you said 6 sacks. I'm not even looking at the stats. The way he fills up the gap is something. I can't believe the Eagles got another star. They got Jordan Davis. They got Nolan Smith at the end of that draft.
Their whole defense is all Georgia. It's one of the best defenses every year in college football. But that guy, I'm telling you,
he's special. If he
really stays healthy, he is special. And the only reason he didn't go higher was because of the off-field issues. And I'm glad that he straightened everything out.
Yeah.
The Eagles got a steal.
Yeah, I'm going to hate playing him for the next 10, 15 years, 2 times a season. All right, last one. This one's a hard one because there's actually a lot for this. Who would be your coach of the year?
Wow, there's about 6 or 7 that deserve it.
I agree.
I mean, how do you McVay?
Yep.
LaFleur, Dan Campbell.
Yep.
To me personally, I give it to 2 people.
Okay. I think I know who.
And they both did an unbelievable job. You got Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland. I mean, you lose 4 quarterbacks. You call a guy off a coach to come play for who's old.
Yeah.
You switch your system to fit him midway through the season. You lose your best running back, Nick Chubb, early in the year. You're in a tough division.
Very tough.
And you win 11 games.
That's unbelievable.
To me, this year they have to give it to two, and you have to give it to D'Amico Ryan as well with Houston. You go from the first pick overall to winning a playoff home game.
Yeah.
To me, they should give it to both guys. It would be
split it.
It would be a crime for one of them not to win it. And this year, I mean, there's so many good coaches now that are finally getting their start, and a lot of good young coaches that, to me, I would give it to both of them. I couldn't decide either way.
I did decide, but I agree with you. So I would give it, before I said I would give it to you, so D'Amico Ryan deserves a lot of credit for turning around a culture. Like, I've really said, like, we went from Lovie Smith screwing the Texans last year. Like, when you think about how much of a dumpster fire that was 12 months ago, that to now a year later, we're talking about them being a force for like the next 10 years because they have the corner, the young corner in Derek Stingley. They have the edge in Will Anderson. They have the quarterback. They got to find the receiver to me. Damian Pierce took a weird step back, but they do have the team. I think that's like completely on D'Amico. You see him. There's something about like he's like a strong young guy. He's motivating his team. He played the game. He played for them. There's passion for him. I think he deserves a lot of credit. And if it wasn't for this guy, he would have got it. Kevin Stefanski needs to get it to me because I'm not sure Joe Flacco's as good as he looked. Like we saw him in the last game. That was terrible. It looked good for a second, then the wheels fell off. Joe Flacco, even in his career, we had questions, even in his prime, if he was elite or if he was just mediocre. I think he was a lot below mediocre this year. I think he looked really good because of Stefanski's offense. Without Chubb, it's unbelievable to me because the run game wasn't clogging up. All the linebackers you had to throw against a full man defense. Cooper's awesome, but after Cooper, it's Elijah Moore, who's like all right. Like, obviously you have Njoku, but I think Stefanski was the reason the Browns won this year. I think his offense is unbelievable. Winning 11 games with 39-year-old Joe Flacco when we don't even know if he was that good in his prime, to me that gives it. I would split it if I could. I know they can't. For me, it's Kevin Stefanski, for sure.
I agree with you. And to think the Houston Texans a year ago went into Indianapolis the last week of the season and won an overtime game for no reason to cost themselves the first overall pick. And they still got the Christmas present. They got the quarterback.
And they got the best two, to me. Yeah, Anderson is
and they got Will Anderson. So Lovie Smith, like you said, they almost won a game they had no business trying for, and it didn't backfire on them. So I think that organization's on the way up. It's
going up, and I think the Browns could be going up if they somehow get rid of Deshaun Watson. But that is for a different episode, a different time. Thanks for coming to the pilot, for tuning into the pilot of Trash Talkin'. That is Reg. Say hi, Reg.
Hi. Thanks for joining.
And I'm E. Thanks for coming around. We will be talking Broncos, Cowboys when they're good enough to talk about. So give it a couple years. Maybe if you're still tuning in 5 years, we'll talk about them. But thanks for talking, and we'll see you next week.